I'm super excited today to be talking about the latest line from Marvel Legends, which is of course the Ursa Major Build-A-Figure wave. Now the reason I'm very excited about this wave is because really it's an Iron Man centric wave. There's a lot of Iron Man characters or Iron Man related characters in this wave, and there's a lot of classic characters here that I'm really glad to see at long last. But I'll be honest, I'm not buying every figure in this wave, so today I will just be reviewing the four here. The Volk Guardsman, Ultron, Iron Man, and the Stealth Suit Iron Man. Now, you might be wondering why I didn't buy the whole set. Well, to be honest, there's a few here that I'm not really that interested in. So we have the holographic Iron Man. This isn't a design of an Iron Man that I really recognise or resonate with, and I certainly don't need it in hologram form. Darkstar, I'm actually in two minds of. I'm not really that familiar with the character, but I do remember her popping up in X-Men the Animated Series, so I've got some affection for her from that. So I might cave and pick her up at a later date. Which of course just leaves Riri Williams, Ironheart. Again, not really a character I'm not familiar with or particularly fond of, so for me this is an easy pass, I'm afraid. Now, I might have been tempted to pick up the remaining three figures, especially as I'm on the fence about Darkstar anyway, if the Build-A-Figure had been something I really wanted. So if this had been, I don't know, Crimson Dynamo or a Titanium Man or something like that, then I probably would have gone all in on this wave. As it is, Ursa Major, again, I honestly didn't remember who this character was. I had to look him up. And although it's always nice to have a Build-A-Figure in the collection, honestly, there's nothing about this figure that really makes me want to go out and get the other figures to build him. Now, usually with the Marvel Legends figures, whenever I do a review or an overview of them, I don't really talk about the packaging that much because it's pretty much more of the same. We're kind of used to what we're getting. However, I did want to talk about it this time because I think they've really stepped up their game. What we usually see with the panel art for Marvel Legends figures is current or modern artists doing a rendition of that particular character, and it's usually sort of one colour, so it's kind of like gradient, so it might be red, it might be blue, or whatever it might be, so it's kind of washed out. And it's very displayable, it looks nice, but here, I'm really pleased to say they've actually gone for full colour as they appear, and they have, for the most part, included imagery from the original comic books and the original comic book artists. And as you can see, when you stack these together, they just look really impressive and really colourful and fun, and they just display really well. And the same can be said about the reverse of the packaging, because again, they've reused these images, they're on full display here in all their glory, plus there's that little bit of a bio there, and the other figures in the wave. So I think this looks really attractive, I really think it's popping, and I love this, and I hope this is a sign of the direction they're going in the future, because I want to see more of this. First up, we have the Modular Iron Man. This was Iron Man's costume as he appeared for most of the early 90s. I'm a big fan of this look, and I've been waiting for this figure for a very long time. And I have to say, he was definitely worth the wait because this figure is fantastic. Now, interestingly, this isn't the first time we've had this costume. In fact, we did get it from Toy Biz way back when, as part of a special face-off set with the Mandarin. But that figure has definitely suffered from those ball-jointed hips, and it looked a little bit elongated and not quite right, a little bit clunky and strange. So I'm really glad to finally have a properly in proportion modular Iron Man, and I think they've done a fantastic job with this sculpt. I think it's really good. It's not 100% accurate, but it is close enough for me, and I love this metallic paint finish. It is gorgeous. One of the things I've always really loved about this costume is all the little gold details, the little side panels that we see. So we can see him here on his knees and on the side of his legs, and of course on the upper thighs there, and also on his gauntlets. I just think, there's just that little bit of gold finish that looks really good, and it's particularly appropriate here because it does have that metallic wash over it that it just looks really solid. You'll also notice that he actually has differently shaped boots as well, and these are kind of curved up, so I think these may be a new piece. So let's take a look at the articulation. Of course, he does have a ball-jointed head, so he can spin his head 360 degrees, and there's also a joint in the neck there as well, so he can turn his head right the way around. He does have a hinge at the neck, but that doesn't really seem to work as well as it should. In theory, he should be able to lift his head up and down a good distance, but in reality, I think the sculpt of the helmet stops it from having that functionality. He does, of course, have those ball-jointed shoulders, which I love, and I really like that the shoulder pads there are are a soft rubber that kind of just bend and just map underneath the central chest piece, which is really, really nice and does not hinder the articulation at all. And he's got that fantastic ab crunch there, and it looks really, really good. It works well with this costume, so it doesn't look like it's compromised at all, and it gives him such a fantastic range of motion there. Of course, he's got the ball jointed hips, so he can kick his legs out to the side. He's got that thigh swivel, and of course he can kick forwards, although they do tend to come out a little bit. They don't really go backwards though, and he does of course have the double jointed knees as well. He also has a swivel at the top of the boot there, which is great, and he does have the ankle rockers as well, so he's got that wonderful hinge that goes backwards and forwards, but also rocks from side to side, which is fantastic. He also comes with a couple of accessories, 2 closed fists and 2 repulsor blast effects. All in all, absolutely love this figure. This is 4 stars from me. I really don't know how you could improve upon it, except to say I've knocked off a star because the hinge on the head doesn't work quite as well as it should and doesn't allow him to look up or down too well. I really love that they've gone for this metallic paint wash as well, because it just looks so good, so rich, and it just feels fantastic. So I think they've just done a fantastic job with this fella. Moving on to the Volk Guardsman, I was actually surprised to learn that he started out originally as a villain for Iron Man. But growing up in the 90s, I always knew him as being more of an army builder, to be honest, as part of a series of glorified prison guards in the Vault. So I think it's great because they've done an absolute fantastic job with this sculpt once again, and it's brilliant because I think he's versatile enough to be either. So whether you're a more traditional Iron Man fan and you see him more as a villain, or whether you see him as just being one of a number of generic guards, you can definitely army build this fella too. Either way, it's an absolutely fantastic costume. I love the 2 tones of green, I love the head sculpt, I love that they've actually added this single plastic piece all around the head, which is really cool, and they've given a really fantastic paint job again. We're seeing that metallic paint so that when the light's on it just shines brilliantly, and it just feels really luxurious and just absolutely wonderful. His articulation is going to be much the same as we expect with any of the Marvel Legends figures. He has that ball jointed neck, so of course he can spin his head 360 degrees, but he can also crucially look up and down a pretty decent distance. It's not huge amounts, but it's definitely enough to create an effect there, which is more successful than say the Iron Man. And here you can see that mask piece is actually a separate piece that they've moulded on around the head, which I think is really cool. It gives it another texture and just layers the figure up nicely. Again, he's got that slightly bigger frame than the Iron Man, so he's got the bigger shoulder joints there, and of course he's got the bicep swivel and the double jointed elbows, which is fantastic, and then he also has the swivel at the wrist, which is also hinged, so he can arch his hand backwards and forwards with no resistance whatsoever. Perfect. He's got that swivel at the waist there, so he can spin right the way around, which is fantastic. And he's got that great ab crunch as well, so he can look a pretty good distance down there and a really good distance up as well. So huge range of motion here, which is great. Same hinged hips, so the legs kick out to the side. He's got the swivel at the thigh. They kick forwards, they kick backwards a little bit. And he's got the double jointed knees as well, which is great. Again, he's got a swivel at the boot, where the boot cut is, which is great. And he's got the pivoted ankles as well, which is brilliant. He also comes with some goodies, a pair of closed fists, and a pistol. Overall, this is another really solid figure. I love this. I think the paint apps are fantastic, and I really like the mould they've chosen for him as well, which is really strong. So I think what we have here is a really solid 4. He's not quite a 5 because there's nothing extra special about him. There's nothing that's gone the extra mile that feels, more special to warrant that top mark. But it's a very solid figure. Moving on to the second Iron Man in this set, which is the Stealth Iron Man, based on, of course, his classic outfit design. This is fantastic. This is another one that's been on my want list for a very long time. We've had other stealth variants in the past, but not of this outfit, so this is brilliant. They've basically reused the mould from the 80th anniversary Iron Man, and then give him the deep dark blue and the red paint taps. And I think the overall effect is really strong and very striking, and yeah, he does not disappoint. One of the things you might notice is that there seems to be 2 lots of paint apps running through this, 2 shades of blue being used, and it's really effective. There's a slightly lighter dark blue and a very dark blue, and again there is that metallic sheen running throughout it, which is absolutely brilliant. In terms of his articulation, he does of course have that ball jointed neck there, so he can spin his head right the way around, and you'll notice he can look up and down really strongly too, which is great. He's got the ball jointed shoulders, which are perfect, the bicep swivel, the double jointed elbows, and of course he has that swivel at the hand there. Now interestingly, whereas the Iron Man could actually arch and hinge his wrist, this one can't. The wrists do not hinge at all. He does swivel at the waist, and he also has that fantastic ab crunch there as well, so he has a great range of motion. He's got the same ball jointed hips there, so the legs kick out. He's got the thigh swivel and the double jointed knees as well. Likewise, he's also got that swivel at the top of the boot, and of course he's got the ankle rockers there as well, so he can hinge his foot upwards and downwards, and of course from side to side, which is great. Now here's something odd that I thought was worth pointing out. You might notice there's a sort of grey dust here in his joints. Now it actually looks like the paint has come away, but it's not, it's dust. Now when I first opened the figure, the whole figure was covered in this in all the joints. And naturally at first I thought I got a really damaged figure. I thought all the paint apps had come off, but it's not, it's just this dust. Now it's all over the figure, so I'm guessing this is a new way that the figures are being coated with this to keep them safe or to keep the joints tight. I'm not quite sure, but I've not seen it on any other figures in this wave, and I've not seen it on any other Marvel Legends, so I'm not sure if this is a new trend or whether it's just a strange peculiarity to this figure or just my copy, but yeah, I thought I'd point out in case anyone else sees the same thing. So for accessories, he does come with an extra pair of open blaster hands and 2 red blaster effects as well. But pleasingly, he also comes with an extra Tony Stark head, which is really cool. I thought I'd pop this head on the Modular Iron Man just to see what that looks like, since roughly that kind of was his look in the 90s. It doesn't really quite work. The neck is sadly just too long, so it does look a little bit strange. But has no problem, of course, on the Stealth Iron Man. So again, I think this is a really lovely figure. I think they've done an amazing job with it. One I've wanted for a very long time, and I think, yeah, they've knocked it out of the park, really. I can't see any reason not to give it the full 5 stars. It delivers everything I wanted and more, and, you know, you get that little extra of having the Tony Stark head there, which just takes it over the top. Finally, we have Ultron, and finally is the apt word because I've been waiting for this guy for so long. I can't believe it's taken this long to get a classic Ultron. We've had Ultrons in the past, but never this classic design, which I think for many of us is the definitive Ultron look, really. And he does not disappoint because they've done a wonderful job both on the sculpt, particularly in the head, but also the actual paint apps as well, because again he's got that metallic sheen running right the way through him, and he just looks brilliant, especially when the light's on him. He really shines. The articulation is pretty much what you'd expect. The ball jointed neck allows him to spin his head right the way around, but also arch up and down. And I'd actually say he's got the best head articulation out of any of the figures in this line, so he has no problems looking up and down there whatsoever. He also has quite soft ears there, so they're firm enough to hold their position, but they're malleable as well, which is fantastic. One thing I really love are these shoulder pads. They've just added these on. You can see they just clip on there perfectly, and they move with the shoulders, so there's no hindrance to articulation there whatsoever. Absolutely wonderful stuff. He's got the bicep swivel, the double jointed elbows, and he has that hinge wrist there, which allows him to spin it 360 degrees, but also arch his hand up and down, which is fantastic. To make things even better, he can rotate at the chest. He's got that chest joint there to replace the ab crunch. They've really thought through the design. This complements it perfectly, so it actually looks kind of seamless. I'm so glad they thought this through. It works so well, and he's got a fantastic range of motion. This is also combined with a waist swivel as well, so he's got everything you could possibly want here in terms of this kind of upper body articulation. He's got the hinge hips, so of course he can kick his legs out to the side. He's got the thigh swivel. Again, some of these joints are actually seamless because of the design, which is brilliant. He can kick his legs forwards and kind of backwards. He's got the double jointed knees there. He's got a boot cut swivel there just above the ankle, which is great. And of course he's got those ankle pivots as well, which means he can bend his forwards and backwards, but also from side to side. And you'll see there's even detail on the soles of his feet, so it doesn't get better than this. Something else I wanted to point out, and that is the head sculpt, because it's not immediately apparent, but they've actually bothered to craft this so that there is that huge gap inside his mouth there. And for accessories, he has a pair of closed fists, a spare open hand, and he also comes with this sort of weird effect, which is, I can't quite describe it really, I don't know what to call it, but he has this effect that sort of spews from his mouth. this should hopefully demo what I mean. So there's a couple of ways you can use this effect, this sort of energy effect. You can kind of have it so it's kind of trailing out of his mouth like a vapor here, or you can have this more balanced look where it's coming out of both sides of the jaw. And I mean, I just think it's amazing they even thought to do this. This is really unexpected and really just pushes this figure over the top. Now, previously, the only toy company to release a classic Ultron figure like this was actually Diamond Select and their Marvel Select line, where they did a classic Ultron, and for my money, I never thought they'd ever improve upon that, because I just thought it was a fantastic sculpt. He was always slightly too big for my Marvel Legends, but I thought he was a wonderful figure nevertheless. But I actually think here, Hasbro have outdone them. He doesn't have the same clunky hip problem, the ball-jointed hips that the Marvel Select version has, but also the paint apps are much nicer. He's much shinier, he looks a lot more smooth and seamless in terms of his joints, and then yeah, having this extra sort of energy effect coming out of his mouth is just incredible. Like, it's gone the extra mile. So if this isn't a 5-star figure, I really don't know what is. This is pitch perfect. He's definitely been worth the wait, and long overdue, so I'm so glad to finally have him in the collection. So there you have it, there's my thoughts, there's my review of these 4 figures from this wave. I have to say, I think this is one of the strongest waves we've seen in a very, very long time. These 4 figures are absolutely monumental, I think. I think they've done a fantastic job. I really praise them so much for giving them these metallic paint washes. It works so well, and the figures are just wonderful. The articulation, the molds, the sculpts, everything is just solid, really, really solid. And I have to say, I think these are probably amongst my favourite 4 figures from this year, from any line. These are fantastic figures, they truly are. And I have to say, probably the strongest wave from Marvel Legends in 2021. And you know, that is saying something, because it's had some stiff competition this year. Even the previous release Villains Wave, which is absolutely fantastic as well. I didn't think these would outmatch them, but they did. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, please do give it a like. And remember to subscribe, as I will be posting more videos soon.